And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Put on your thinking caps. Really put on your thinking caps, because today we're looking at a small little game called Ergo. Now, I love logic. I love to think. I love to teach logic. When I taught geometry, I would always go through long, lengthy discussions on logic and the different if and then and modus ponens and modus tollens and all the different logical things. And that is contained in this game. That being said, Ergo is a game that I'm not sure everyone is going to enjoy, because this is one of the headiest, most thinky, most cerebral games that I have ever played. Let's take a look. At the beginning of the game, each player is assigned one of the four variables, A, B, C, or D. Okay, you can see the cards can be flipped either way. Now, I'm going to be very cautious here not to go into too in-depth on much of the logic part of this game. One, I'm really afraid I'm going to make an error at some point, because logic can be tricky, and I'm going to hear about that. And two, because, well, it would take a lot of explanation. What players are doing, though, over the course of the game, is they are trying to prove that their letter exists and that the other player or players' letters do not exist. So what players are going to be doing is they're going to be playing to one proof that's going to be in the middle of the table. This proof can have up to 4 lines. And on your turn, you are going to draw from a deck 2 cards, which should bring your hand up to 7, because you'll start with 5 at the beginning. You must play and or discard 2 of those cards, and then it's the next person's turn. So if I played, for example, A, I am proving that A exists. Then we could put down B, B exists, but that's not going to be very useful. So what we're going to have to use are different operators. I could use, for example, not B. Now, in this situation, if I was A, I'd be very happy, because I am proving that A exists and B does not. But there's a whole lot more that we can do other than this. We could say A and D or B could be a whole statement that players could play out there. So this could mean B, or it could mean A and D. And then if I said later on, well, for maybe a second line, not A, well, then I know that A and D doesn't work, so therefore B would be the correct thing. Now, once again, I'm being very cautious. There's a lot of rules of logic that can be used here. But again, what I want to concentrate on, what does come in the game. We have ands, we have ors, we have nots. We also have parentheses. When you play parentheses, you play those in pairs. So, for example, I could say not A, which means A. We also have a very important one, which is the if-then. So I could say if C, then D. Now, there's a lot of different things. In fact, the game comes with rules of logic. This is one whole side that shows you the different rules of logic. We have modus ponens. We have the disjunctive syllogism. We have all excluded middle. There's all different things, and this is to help you figure out the right ways to make the proof. Now, this is not the only thing that the game includes. There is some wilds, which are great. You can see this could be any variable. It could be any symbol. Whew. That could be very useful. Also, there's a card called tabula rasa, which can be used to take something out of the game and put it on the bottom of the deck. Then there's these cards, and I don't really like these cards. You can play a fallacy on somebody else. This isn't played in the proof, it's played on someone else. And that person has to skip their next 3 turns unless they can play a justification. That's a real pain in the neck, and it doesn't fit in with the logic game. My recommendation, chuck those out and still play the game. The game is going to continue till the whole deck runs out, or until someone plays an Ergo card. At that point in time, the proof will be examined, and you will see if your letter is proven to be true, and others player's letters are proven to be false. If that happens, then you win. It is possible for the whole thing to simply just be a fallacy, to maybe there to be some kind of problem. There's just none of it makes any sense. But if it does, if a proof does exist, then you're going to get a point for every card in that proof. And then you start another round. First person to 50 points is the winner. Now, I find this game entertaining. I like the idea of putting the cards out and trying to figure out, okay, that's true, that's false. If that's true, then that's false. That's fascinating for me. But I was a math teacher. And I think other math teachers would enjoy playing this with me. But who else? See, I'm not always playing at a logic convention or a bunch of other math teachers. So I would have to hunt down somebody who wanted to play this. And then, even then, I don't want to do that kind of cerebral game playing all the time. It's interesting. It can be an interesting exercise. And maybe this isn't even a bad solo game. And so you're playing this game with someone else, and if you're playing, I could see this being used in a geometry class or a logic class to say this is how logic works, maybe even a speech class to help people say, hey, you need to prove your points using this, because half the rules don't explain how to play the game, they're explaining the rules of logic to you. And so some people are going to like that aspect, but I'm going to wager that most people, I'm talking not like 4 out of 5, I'm talking about 95% of people are not going to even want to touch this game. Now again, I'm not saying that makes this a bad game. It just means it has a very small audience. And probably by now you can tell whether that's you or not. And even if it is you, for example me, I like this game, but I'm not going to keep it. Why? Because I'm very rarely going to play it with anybody. And if I do find someone and we both like logic and we both want to try this out, there's all these other games to play anyway. So a very specifically tuned game. Maybe there's some of you out there who this would be good and useful to use in teaching. And that, I think, is the best aspect of Ergo. Think about it. Is it worth it for you?
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.